You know how this one ends. A princess drops something into a well. A frog retrieves it. He asks for something in return, to eat from her plate, to sleep in her bed, to be her companion. She agrees and then ignores the promise. Her father makes her honor it. The frog stays. Eventually she kisses him. He becomes a prince. They live happily ever after. It is a story about keeping your word, about seeing past appearances, about kindness being returned. The frog is ugly, and she learns to look past that, and love transforms him. That is the story as most people know it. In the Brothers Grimm version, the story opens the same way. A well, a frog, a promise made and broken, but there is no kiss. What breaks the curse is not love. It is not patience. It is not the princess learning to see past ugliness and opening her heart. The princess picks up the frog and throws him against the wall, as hard as she can. He falls to the floor, and he is a prince. The violence works where the tenderness would not. The Grimm story is not about learning to love what repels you. It is about something considerably more complicated, about obligation, about disgust, about what happens when a promise extracted under duress meets the limit of what a person can actually bear. Tonight we read what the Brothers Grimm actually wrote. Welcome to the real Grimm. One thing worth knowing before we begin. The Brothers Grimm placed this story first in their entire collection. Not because it was the most famous or the most beloved, but deliberately. It was their opening statement, the first thing anyone encountered when they opened the book. That placement is a choice about what the collection is for. The Grimms were scholars who thought carefully about structure. Beginning with this particular story, a story about promises, about what we owe to the things that help us, about the gap between what we agree to in a moment of desperation and what we are actually willing to give, suggests they saw it as foundational, a key to everything that follows. The Frog Prince transformation belongs to a family of enchanted animal stories that appears across centuries of European and Asian folklore. Stories in which a curse can only be broken by a specific act from a specific person. Beauty and the Beast belongs to this family. What makes the Grimm version distinctive is its moral texture. In almost every other version of this kind of story, the transformation is broken by love, or recognition, or the heroine choosing to stay despite fear or repulsion. The Grimm Frog Prince is broken by a princess throwing a frog against a wall. That difference is what tonight is about. A king has several daughters. The youngest is described in the text with unusual directness. Not just beautiful, but so extraordinarily so that even the sun, which sees everything, marvels every time it shines on her face. She lives in a castle at the edge of a great dark forest, and on hot days she walks into the shade of the trees to sit beside an old well and pass the time. She has a golden ball that she throws and catches, her favorite thing, the text tells us, in all the world. One afternoon the ball goes wrong. She throws it, misses the catch, and it rolls across the ground and drops straight into the well. She watches it sink into the dark water and disappear. She begins to cry, and then she cries harder, because crying does not help and she knows it, and the ball is gone. A voice comes from the water. Something is watching her from the surface of the well. A frog, his thick, wet head resting on the edge, and he tells her that he could hear her crying from the bottom, and asks what is wrong. She tells him about the ball, half dismissive, the way you speak to something you don't entirely want to be speaking to. The frog tells her he can get it back, but he wants something in return. She offers him everything she can think of, her clothes, her jewels, her pearls. He refuses all of it. What he wants, he says, is simpler and stranger, to be her companion, to sit beside her at the table, to eat from her golden plate and drink from her cup, to sleep in her bed. If she will give him those things, he will dive down and bring her ball back. She looks at him for a moment. Then she makes the calculation that people make when they want something badly and the price seems impossible to collect on later. He is a frog. He lives in a well. He cannot follow her home, cannot climb castle steps, cannot knock on a door. She says yes to everything he asks, and the moment the ball is back in her hand she runs, back through the trees, back toward the castle, without a single word. The frog calls after her. She does not stop. By the time she reaches the castle she has, in every way that matters, already forgotten him. What happens next is what the story is actually about, and it begins not at the well, but at a dinner table. The following evening, the king and his daughters are seated at dinner when a sound comes from the castle door. Something wet and persistent, something that does not belong. The youngest princess goes to see what it is, opens the door, and finds the frog sitting on the stone threshold, patient and still, looking up at her. She slams the door and goes back to the table with her heart beating too fast. Her father notices immediately. He asks her what she is afraid of, whether there is a giant outside, something that could hurt her. She tells him the truth. It is a frog, and she explains what happened at the well, the promise she made, the ball she got back. She says it as though the explanation itself is the end of it. She made a foolish promise to a frog who could not possibly be owed anything. The king does not see it that way. He tells her that what she promised, she must keep, that she should go and let him in. She goes. She opens the door. The frog hops past her and follows her back to the table, and everything that happens next has the quality of a slow, inevitable pressure. He asks to be lifted onto the chair beside her. The king tells her to do it. He asks her to push her plate closer so he can eat from it. She does, slowly, as if moving something she would rather not touch, and she watches him eat while she sits with her hands in her lap and eats nothing. When he is finished, he tells her he is tired and that she should carry him upstairs and prepare her bed so they can sleep. This is the moment the text lingers on. Not the frog at the well, not even the promise, but this. The princess begins to cry. Properly, the way you cry when something is being asked of you that you do not have the language to refuse. The king tells her that the one who helped her when she needed it should not be treated with contempt now that the help has been given. It is a short sentence, and it lands like something final. She picks the frog up with 2 fingers, the very tips, the least amount of contact she can manage, and carries him upstairs. She sets him in the corner of her room. When she is in bed and the candle is out, he hops over and tells her he wants to sleep properly, on the pillow, or he will tell her father. It is a small threat, almost absurd, and it is the one that works. She picks him up and puts him on the pillow beside her. He sleeps. She does not. In the morning, he hops down from the bed and leaves, back down the stairs and out through the castle door. She watches him go and says nothing, and then he comes back the next night, and the night after that. On the 3rd morning, something is different. She wakes and the frog is there as before, sitting on the pillow, waiting to leave for the day. 3 nights of this. 3 mornings of the same small, wet weight beside her, the same sound of him hopping across the floor. She has reached the end of something, not a decision, not a moral choice, just the simple limit of what she can continue to absorb. She picks him up, not with 2 fingers this time. She picks him up properly, and she throws him against the wall as hard as she can. He falls, and when he hits the floor, he is not a frog. He is a young man. The text says his eyes are beautiful and friendly, and he stands there in the room looking at her. He tells her that a wicked witch had put a curse on him, and that only she had the power to break it, and that she just did. He asks if she will go with him to his father's kingdom and be his wife. A carriage arrives outside. 8 white horses with white ostrich feathers on their heads, their harnesses gleaming. And standing behind the carriage is a servant named Heinrich, who had loved the prince so deeply that when his master was transformed into a frog, he had 3 iron bands placed around his own chest to keep his heart from breaking with grief. They ride. The road stretches ahead of them through the forest. And then, at some point along the way, there is a sound, sharp, like something cracking under enormous pressure. The prince thinks it is the carriage braking. He calls back to ask. Heinrich answers from behind them, his voice quiet and certain. It is not the carriage. It is a band around his heart, which had been placed there to hold it together while his master lived at the bottom of a well. The sound comes twice more before they reach the kingdom. 3 cracks. 3 bands, one by one, each releasing. That is the last sound in the story. The ending of this story has puzzled readers for 2 centuries, and I think the puzzlement is the point. Everything in the story's setup points toward a conventional moral. Honor your promises, treat others with kindness, look past surface appearances. The frog helped the princess. The king insists she repay the debt. She does so, grudgingly but technically. The frog sits at her table, sleeps in her bed. She upholds the letter of what she agreed to even though it costs her something real. That is the arc of a story about duty and character. And if it ended there, If the frog transformed in the morning after she had done everything correctly, rewarded for her compliance, it would be a tidy moral fable. But the transformation does not happen when she finally accepts him. It does not happen when she stops resisting. It happens when she runs out of patience entirely and flings him against a wall. The Brothers Grimm do not explain this. They do not comment on it. The story simply records it as fact. The curse breaks when she throws him. They move on immediately to the carriage and the iron bands and Heinrich, as if the mechanism of the transformation is not the interesting part. But it is the interesting part. One reading, the one most scholars favor, is that this is a survival from an older oral tradition in which enchantment was broken by physical shock rather than emotional transformation. In those older versions, the violence was probably not ambiguous. It was simply the required act, like a lock that needs a specific key. The moral weight we now expect the ending to carry was not originally there. But the Grimms placed this story first in their book, and in the context of everything that surrounds it, the ending reads differently. It reads like an honest account of what obligation actually feels like to the person bearing it. The princess is not a villain. She made a promise under duress, to escape a situation she couldn't solve herself. She honored that promise in every technical sense. She let him in. She fed him from her plate. She let him sleep beside her, while finding it increasingly unbearable. What breaks on that third morning is not her character. It is her endurance. And the story rewards that break. This is not the moral of most fairy tales. Most fairy tales reward patience, forbearance, acceptance. The Grimm Frog Prince rewards something rawer and less comfortable. The moment when a person simply cannot anymore and acts from that place. And it turns out that was exactly what was needed. Whether that is a comfort or a warning probably depends on what you bring to the story. The kiss that most people associate with this story does not appear in the Brothers Grimm. It appears to have entered through a Scottish variant collected around the same time. A story in which a frog is transformed when a girl kisses him as instructed. That version traveled, merged with the Grimm story in popular imagination, and became the default ending that most people know. It is a telling substitution. The kiss is an act of will, a deliberate, conscious choice to extend affection towards something you find repellent, to override your instincts in service of something larger. It asks something of the princess that the wall does not. It requires her to feel, or at least to perform, something generous. The wall asks nothing generous of her. It asks nothing at all. It is what happens when generosity is exhausted. Disney's adaptation navigated this by making the kiss the center of the story and then immediately complicating it. The kiss doesn't work the way the characters expect. Both become frogs, and the actual transformation requires something more earned. It is a thoughtful film, genuinely interested in what obligation and love require of people. It just arrives at different answers than the Grimms did. The other significant change across adaptations is the father. In the Grimm original, the king is the moral center of the story, the one who insists the promise be honored, who overrides his daughter's distaste, who holds the line on what a commitment means. He is not warm about it. He is simply firm. In most adaptations, this figure is softened or removed, because a father forcing his daughter to sleep beside a frog she finds disgusting is, when examined too closely, an uncomfortable image. The Grimms were not concerned with that discomfort. They were concerned with the principle. You made a promise. The promise must be kept. The discomfort of keeping it is not a reason to break it. Remove the father's firmness and the story collapses. The princess would simply never let the frog in. There would be no 3 nights, no third morning, no wall. The discomfort is the mechanism. It is what drives the story toward its ending. The iron bands around Heinrich's heart are the other thing worth sitting with. Heinrich does not appear until the very end. He is almost an afterthought, a servant in a carriage. But he is the only character in the story whose love for the prince is unambiguous and total. He had iron bands placed around his own heart. Not metaphorically. The text treats it as literal. A man so grief-stricken by his master's transformation that he commissioned physical reinforcement for his chest so he would not die from it. When the bands break as they ride, the sound they make is the sound of something held under enormous pressure finally being allowed to release. The princess through the frog. Heinrich endured. Both of them, in their completely different ways, arrive at the same destination. The story's final image is not the couple, not the romance. not the transformed prince standing in the room with beautiful and friendly eyes. It is a servant in a carriage, listening to iron snap open around his heart, one band at a time, as the miles pass. A man whose grief had literally needed to be contained, who is now, quietly, being released from it. That is the last sound in the story. 3 cracks, 3 bands, a heart that was caged because it loved something it could not help. The Grimms put this story first. They knew what they were doing. The Grimms opened their entire collection with this story. Hundreds of pages of folk material, murders and cannibalism and iron shoes heated in fire and children abandoned in forests. And they chose to begin with a girl at a well, a dropped ball, and a promise she did not intend to keep. There is something deliberate in that choice. The Frog Prince story is not the darkest thing in the book. It is not the most violent. It does not have the historical weight of Hansel and Gretel or the psychological density of Snow White. What it has is a question that everything else in the collection circles back to in one form or another. What do we owe to the things that helped us when we had no other options? The princess made a promise she considered meaningless at the time, a promise to a frog to get a ball back out of a well. She did not think it counted. She ran. Her father thought it counted. He made her go back. She honored it badly, grudgingly, at the absolute limit of what she could stand. And something was freed by that, not by her generosity, but by the fact that she stayed long enough for her patience to break completely. Heinrich, in the back of the carriage, heard the band snap. He had been waiting a long time for that sound. The story does not tell us how long. It does not need to. These stories survived 1,000 years because people kept passing them on. If you want to help keep the real versions alive, like and subscribe. The next one is already coming.